You both on the spot then and get a prediction from you, because we make Robbie do it every single week, so you can't get out.
I'm so good at it.
We'll see Robbie's predictions later. Jules, which way can you see this one going?
I go 1-1.
Oh, that's sitting on the
Jules.
That's not a prediction.
Come on, Jules.
It's just, you know, it's just, I know what's going to happen.
A wild draw, okay.
But I'm going to get off Jules's fence, and I'll go 2-1 Liverpool.
2-1 to Liverpool. All right, we'll see Robbie's prediction a little bit later. Previews, though, with the game that kicks off this Premier League weekend at the King Power Stadium. It will be a tough test for Liverpool and Jurgen Klopp. Let's hear from the Reds boss now.
As good as it can be, or as good as it should be. It's not that we have like a bad or aggressive or a blaming or whatever mood. Not at all. We came in this situation all together. We know some reasons, and we are in it together, absolutely together. So there's nothing really to worry about or whatever, that we now point with the finger on each other and say it's because of you or because of you. No, it's we want to sort it together, and we will sort it together. The only thing you really can do is to fight through a situation like this, because nobody will help you. It's not that people will roll the ball in front of the goal and you don't have to make the last touch. You have to work for all these situations. You have to defend on highest level, and you have to attack on highest level. And in between, you have to play proper football. And that's what we are, and that's what we did, without getting the results always, that's clear, and without performing always on our highest level, for sure, as well. But there's a lot of good signs in the last weeks, which shows me that we are not too far away.
Well, what a way to start the Premier League weekend with this game between Leicester and Liverpool. As Jurgen Klopp was saying there, Ennie, it's going to be a big test for the Liverpool boys, a big test of their character, a big test of the quality in the squad. If we look back to last weekend first, before looking forward, what did the performance and the result against Manchester City tell us about Liverpool's title challenge?
Well, I think they're in a really bad run of form, certainly at home. Man City look like a sort of unstoppable train at the moment. So you could probably say there's no shame in sort of Liverpool losing in that way, particularly in their bad run of form. I think we've talked a lot about injuries for Liverpool. I think it's definitely caught up on them. And, you know, it's going to be difficult for them going into this game with Fabinho out. Henderson's probably going to move back into the back line, which, you know, for someone like Jamie Vardy is going to be rubbing his hands saying, well, you know, I fancy myself against this sort of makeshift back four for Liverpool. So it's not a good time for Liverpool. But I look at, you know, they're in a bad run, but I look at the results against Spurs and West Ham. They played very well. So we don't actually know what Liverpool are going to turn up. And that's also a problem as well. So, and the front three are there as well. So I think Liverpool can still get a result in this game. There's always that chance.
The big thing that come out of that game against City for me was the team's all over the place and people out of position. The midfield area is missing Henderson and Fabinho. Obviously, he looks like he's going to be out. Henderson playing in the back four. And the full-backs, one-on-one situation defensively. Trent, Alexander and Robertson. One-on-one, forward against Robertson. You've seen the goal. Yeah. Sterling, the way he went past Trent, they're one-on-one situations, they're very vulnerable. They're missing Van Dijk massively. We know that. But that for me, if I was Leicester, with Harvey Barnes, with Vardy as a centre forward, and where they saw Brighton, you know, or Under, get at the Liverpool fullbacks.
You're right, and I was at the game against City, and there's a time in the second half where Henderson, you can hear him shouting at Thiago Alcantara, come and help Trent, because he was Trent against Sterling one-on-one, and even Henderson knew that Trent was in trouble. Yeah. And I think if you start not really trusting your fullback in one-on-one situation, it's hard. It's so hard to defend, and I think you're right. This is where the weaknesses is, even maybe more than another pair of centre-backs, because Klopp has had so many of them. If Kabak starts with Henderson, this will be a new pair of centre-backs. But I think the fullbacks have been a weakness for Liverpool for many weeks now.
I think it was really interesting what Klopp said in his press conference about, you know, Jamie Vardy being the best in the world in a certain position in the field. So I think tactically Liverpool will try and stop service into Vardy, so stop the Tielemans, because if you stop that, I think that doesn't expose the weaknesses of the centre-backs, a makeshift back four. And obviously, as you said, you know, the full-backs with Robertson and Trent Alexander-Arnold. So I think tactically they'll try and maybe stop Leicester's midfield to stop Vardy getting that service.
I think the one they've got to try and stop is Maddison. He's been brilliant this season because if it's not Tielemans, Maddison gets in between the lines.
Yeah.
And I think Leicester, I might be completely wrong here, but Leicester have won the most penalties this season.
Yeah.
Because when Maddison gets in between the lines on the half turn, Vardy's little runs, you know, and he gets into the box. So those two could be a huge danger.
You're right. I think Vardy has 7 pens, Tielemans maybe 2 or 3. So they've had loads because they're so skillful in the box and they know exactly what to do, Maddison and Vardy especially. And Liverpool will play a high line. That's what they do. And the problem is, it's all good to try to stop the Maddison-Vardy relationship or Tielemans-Vardy relationship. But if you don't have Fabinho in midfield and no Henderson or Tielemans-Vardy relationship, but if you don't have Fabinho in midfield and no Henderson either, I'm not sure how much Milner can play with the intensity that you need to stop that relationship. Same with Thiago, they're not those kind of players. So I think maybe Liverpool would have to drop a little bit and see how they manage in midfield.
And you've already alluded to it, Jules, the amount of different centre-back pairings that Liverpool have had this season. Counting them up until this point, it's already been 12 different centre-half pairings. This goes to show, doesn't it, just how important consistency at the back can be for a Premier League team. You're
right. Imagine being Alisson or Alexander-Arnold and Robertson, and every single time the guy in front of you or next to you is someone different who plays with different qualities, who's different pace, who's got different weaknesses as well.
A different level of trust too.
Yeah, oh yeah, of course. And even your own bearings with him. If you've played with someone for 3 years in a row, and then suddenly someone else comes in that you've never met before, it's completely different. And I think that's also a reason why they've struggled a bit. Certainly in the last few weeks, all the injuries, I don't think you can't plan for that. But certainly this would be another game with another different back four, and I think it's very difficult.
Also, Alisson's mistakes.
Yeah. You know, but certainly this would be another game with another different back four.
Goalkeepers now, Klopp likes playing out from the back. Alisson's so comfortable, but the pressure, you know.
Yeah, just, you know, it's almost smell blood and go after it. Yeah, but I think this week Klopp would have spoken to Alisson and sort of said, listen, what's going on? And I think he's a good enough goalkeeper to recover from that.
When you try and pick out kind of what's gone wrong at Liverpool, of course, injuries is a huge part of it, Jules. But Jurgen Klopp has said before that Liverpool's identity is their intensity. And is that perhaps part of the reason behind these injuries, as well as being unlucky? But is that just impossible to maintain over such a long
break for 3 years? There's a point where I think your body said, I've got enough here. And that's what, unfortunately for them, happened. All those injuries that they didn't have in previous season that others had is happening now for them.
So this game for the top four is massive. Listen, I think City will win the league. I think United will finish. For me, it's between Chelsea, Liverpool and Leicester. Sydney before a ball was kicked. Liverpool, I had them down to win it. Are we thinking that Liverpool might not finish in the top four?
Oof, it's catastrophic even to think about, but it's possible.
It is.
I mean, 10 points off top. You've got Chelsea 1 point behind them, new manager. It's really tough, but I think it's Liverpool. As I said, even within this bad stretch of results, they've still beaten the Spurs, they've still beaten, you know, good performances. Salah's still scoring top, you know, there's Mana's still there, Firmino's still there. So it's very, very difficult to say a Liverpool that still have those players that have been amazing aren't going to get into the top four. I don't want to sit here and say that.
But defensively, you will have those makeshift back four all between now and the end of the season because Van Dijk is not coming back, Gomez or Matip either. So, not sure. I might go with you and Chelsea fourth, maybe.
What about Leicester? Obviously, they've just dropped out of it last year, the top four. They've been in the top four all season. They've utilised the squad ever so well. They've had injuries, but, you know, they're getting players back now. Vardy's back. Fofana, Soyuncu, and Ndidi. They've Ricardo Pereira. You know, we don't know how James Justin is yet for the weekend. He went off injured in the FA Cup. Could they do it this season? Will they learn from the experience last season?
I think they would have learned, certainly, from last season what happened. It was very special because of the pandemic and the break that we had and then going back. I think if he's clever in who he plays in the Europa League, because let's not forget they play Thursday, Sunday from next week. Yeah. If he's quite clever, and I think Brendan will be, of making sure that you don't that you rotate well enough between the two competitions, I certainly think they can finish top four. And they would deserve to finish top four.
So if I said to you, Liverpool or Leicester missing out top four, who'd you go with?
Liverpool.
Oof, oof, oof.
Eddie, how much of a say do you think this particular match will have on that top four?
Well, if Leicester win, I think it's a big deal for Liverpool because they're so far off already. Man City, obviously, they're sort of look unstoppable. And then obviously Chelsea, sort of on if they've got that form of momentum.
And Everton, because that's the first game of the weekend. That means I think Everton will be 3 or 4 points better with 3 games in hand.
I think Liverpool have to get something out of this game. And that's the pressure and that. But again, that front three, they deliver. They can deliver in these sort of pressure games. So it's a big game. It's a massive game.
All right, I'm going to put